a lot of my friends, they leave school and they get jobs in corporate accounting or the boring stuff, right?
Yeah.
And let's say their base salary making like $60K a year. It'd be hard for them to move from college and start in Somerville just because the rent is high. So I understand it's like inevitable because it's an awesome city, but how do you like as mayor adjust with like rising rental prices?
You're right. It's we are in housing emergency. It's real bad.
Well, I feel like Somerville's the last leg of all of Boston,
it's the
right?
region. And the entire metro Boston region is in the midst of a housing emergency. And in Somerville, we're being impacted this way. One, there are not enough homes or housing units. The entire metro region needs an additional 438,000 units. And on top of that, people want to be in Somerville because it's a real progressive city. It's been on the rise. We've invested in bikeability and walkability. I mean, moving public transit like the Green Line here. So more people want to live here, and there's not enough housing, and that creates a strain of supply and demand. But you're seeing that play out in every city and town, again, in the Boston region. So we're well aware that $60,000 a year, that's not enough. And if you want to rent a 2-bedroom unit here, you need to be making over 80. So you see a lot of young people, and Somerville's now a younger city. I believe about 46% of the population is between the age of 22 and 35. You know, how do you come here and work? And for us, we want you here. We need that talent, that skill set, because we're unlocking the tech economy, the research economy, the innovation economy, all part of it, and part of the vibrancy of the city. And so, one, how do we deal with it? Well, we need to make sure that we're able to enhance your ability to pay, stay. So, can we, one, how are we addressing our goals around production of housing, which we are.
What is base rent right now in Somerville? It's like $1,400, $1,500.
On the lower end, for a 2-bedroom, more like $2,200.
Yeah, that's fat.
More, yeah.
What would a studio be?
A median, was it?
What would a studio be?
Probably around $1,400, depending on where you are. I've seen them go up as high as $2,000 and plus, depending on the size of the studio. I mean, there are a variety of housing options in Somerville, but not to the extent we need in terms of the number of units available. So we have a big push on not just creating new units, which we are in places like Union and Assembly, because we have one of the highest inclusionary rates in our zoning. 20% must be affordable in the inclusionary section. But the big battle is on the neighborhood streets. We have 2s and 3-family homes. People on our streets, on my street, are being pushed out, and we don't want to just give you an opportunity to live in the new units because the city then becomes gated. We want the city to be integrated. Part of what attracts people to Somerville is it is diverse, it is creative, it's original. We speak more than 52
it's artsy,
languages.
Man.
Yeah, I mean, it's funky. It's a little freaky, which we love.
It's a little hippie.
Yeah, but the people love that. But we can't become a city that you only get to live in where we're producing the new units. And on every other side street, there are only condo opportunities. And nothing against condos. It does give people some opportunity for home ownership, but we need to have a good rental stock in any city. So our goal is also, how do we preserve housing? And one of the things we're exploring and hope to set off is an approach over, and this takes time because you can't just turn this, you just can't flip an aircraft carrier around on a dime. The greater Boston area, since coming out of the Great Recession, 2010, I think has added more than 200,000 jobs and 300,000 people, and only produced about 84,000 units of housing. The state and the regions never prepared for the population growth.
It's wicked densely populated.
Yeah, and on top of that, we need to make sure we have public transportation, which should be free. And we shouldn't be raising the fees on public transportation at a time when it doesn't even work well. That is reliable, that is efficient, and I mean rail, buses, and continue to invest in bikeability, walkability. If we make it so that you don't need a car in Somerville, I mean, that's about $8,000 to $10,000 per year you don't need to spend. And really, you don't really need it right now, even with all the construction. But that has to play out across the region.
So that's the strategy, is you're trying to make other areas of life here more affordable so you can have more money to pay for the rising houses?
Well, we need to have more housing units. 1. 2, we need to also invest.
Are you building them right now?
Yeah, the housing units are being built. They are being built, but not at a rate across the region that meets the demand, to be honest. We also need to protect renters and their rights. They're being exploited here. So we passed a new condo conversion ordinance here because there's a lot of, when people buy property and want to flip it to condos, there's been a circumventing of the laws. People aren't given the right notice. In many cases, people being displaced and they pay their rent regularly. The level or the rise, there's been an incredible rise in no fault evictions. Sometimes they're young people like yourself. They're seniors who just want to age in place in the city that they love. We also need to think about other opportunities, like giving the renters a first right of refusal. If I'm going to sell my home and I'm renting to you, giving you the opportunity first to purchase that home, and not just speculators who will come in the city dropping flyers on your house saying, I'll buy your house for cash as is, flip it. That's driving displacement out as well. So we have a big challenge ahead of us. It is serious. What I'm proud about is in Somerville, we're leading the regional dialogue. In fact, I led a coalition of all the 15 mayors and CEOs in the inner core of Boston as head of the Metropolitan Mayors Coalition. And we set for the first time a major production goal just in those 15 cities of creating 185,000 new units of housing by 2030. But I want to be clear, the challenge is big. It's not going to happen overnight. We need, on top of individual communities stepping up to the plate, the state has to push has to be a leader in this. And other communities have to be part of this opportunity as well. I call it an opportunity, not a challenge, because displacement's happening everywhere.
Well, it's just tough for kids our age to be like, yeah, we want to live here now. We don't have to wait till 2030 to live in the city. You know what I'm saying? And then, so just so I clarify. So one, you're trying to create more room for people's budgets to actually pay for here, and two, you're creating new units in the city that will be affordable.
Absolutely, and passing renter protection legislation, so people aren't being
You're using
pushed
big
out.
words here, man. I'm just
so what
trying to
happens
simplify.
is, so we passed a new condo conversion ordinance because we found that people who are renting get displaced. When someone comes in and flips, there's a lot of speculation coming in that's driving people out. We need to be really proactive in that way. We need to be bold. We need bold systemic change and not just chipping at the margins to really take on the affordability crisis.
Isn't that tough for you though? Because it's like, as mayor, you want your city to be making money, and like you want the local economy to be like combustible, and there's tons of money coming in and people are working good jobs. But then just as a result of it, it just means the people who aren't making as much money are kind of getting left behind. It's like kind of a tug and pull, right?
It's a complex challenge, but we need to bring growth in the city, because with that growth, when you have, for example,
grow, man.
What's happening in Assembly,
just like those Curtatone traps, man. Yeah. I see you.
Yeah, we get that money, we reinvest back into the community, into our housing programs, into our schools, into our infrastructure. If you're not growing, then we suffer the consequences now of having to cut those services out. But this isn't a big region. If this was the New York metro area, we'd be Brooklyn, as we say. Mm-hmm. We've suffered in the Metro Boston region for years of provincialism and parochialism. In other words, I got to do it for Somerville or Cambridge or Boston. I don't, because if I don't do it just here, it doesn't help anybody else. And forget about all these other cities and towns. So what do you see in the Metro Boston region? You see a housing emergency of which we've never seen this extent. This is
the last leg of it, though. It's worse in Cambridge, I think.
Yeah, and in transportation, we're trying to compete in the 21st century global economy, provide people opportunities with infrastructure that was built when President Nixon was around. And they have $8 billion to spend on upgrades, and they can't even spend the money because there's not enough people. And, we need to align, because this is inextricable now, a housing policy with a housing plan, with a transportation plan, aligned with the plan to take on climate change, because it's all impacted. It's all tied together.